USS Plainview was the ship of the US Navy that had already put the Soviet Union to sleep before it was launched. In deep and stormy seas where normal combat ships have to face many obstacles, the US Navy's new ship did not bypass the waves and float on water, but literally flew over it. But if it was such an advanced ship, what problems did it face that the US Navy had to decommission it forever? Welcome back to Zem-TV's videos. Viewers, this is the 1960s when the Cold War was going on between the US and the Soviet Union after World War II. Both countries were showing off their strength with their allies. Everyone was just in this race to somehow show themselves more powerful in front of the world. Now it was necessary for this work to invent such things, to adopt such technology that the world had never seen before. The US Navy, which had established its influence over the world with its performance in World War II, had now fallen into danger due to the few developments of the Soviet Union. The Soviets started making such advanced nuclear submarines that the US Navy could not destroy even if it wanted to. These submarines could travel at a speed of about 75 kilometers per hour in water, while at that time the US Navy's ships were much slower than this. Not only their speed, but also their ability to go into a depth of 350 meters and completely hide themselves from the radar of the US Navy and the sonar scanning system. The US was in danger that the Soviet submarines could easily follow the US Navy's ships and attack them. And even if their combat ships were detected on the radar, they would not be able to do anything to the Soviet submarines. Because of their speed, it was not only difficult to catch them, but the torpedo missiles at that time, which are underwater guided missiles, were also much slower than the Soviet submarines. The Soviet Union's submarine issue was in the hands of the US Navy. There was only one solution to deal with them, to make such ships that could run faster than the Soviet submarines. The thing that the US Navy officials were looking for was already made by an Italian engineer in 1906. He had made a boat that could run quite fast using underwater wings. These underwater wings were attached to the bottom of the boat, and when the boat was catching a little speed, the water pressure would lift these wings up. The boat's body would come out of the water, while only the wings would be in contact with the water. By doing this, the drag generated by the water would decrease, and it was obvious that the boat could run faster. This design was named hydrofoil. After the invention of hydrofoil in 1906, it was gradually advancing. In the 1950s, this technology was also applied to commercial yachts and boats. The design of hydrofoil was very good for the US Navy, but there was a problem with it. The problem was that these boats could only run in lakes where the water was calm. Because in the ocean, where the US Navy needed them, the waves were very dangerous. So it was not possible for them to run fast there. This was the reason why the US Navy decided to make some changes to this hydrofoil design. The underwater wings were positioned completely flat in the water. This allowed the waves to flow between the boat's body and the wings, which allowed the boat to maintain its speed smoothly in more waves. The only problem with this new design was that these wings had to be moved continuously in such a way that the boat's position remained straight at all times. Fortunately, this technology was also made in the 1960s. The US Navy had now realized that this design would be the best to compete with the Soviet submarines. In this condition, these hydrofoil ships would be able to follow the Soviet submarines. In 1970, the US Navy had already made 4 prototypes of hydrofoil, including the largest 320-ton USS Plainview. It was then called the world's largest high-speed hydrofoil ship. At slow speed, it ran as well as other combat ships, but when it had to speed up, its hydrofoils were lowered with the help of hydraulic jacks. These were 14,000 horsepower engines, which were actually the engines of the F-4 Phantom fighter jet. Plainview could run at a speed of 91 km per hour with the help of this engine and hydrofoil, which was 16 km per hour more than the Soviet submarines. In addition, there was also the option of installing additional jet engines on the Plainview, which would also achieve an astonishing speed of 170 km per hour. In addition to all these things, a very advanced automatic control system was also installed in the Plainview, which could control hydrofoils even in 10-foot waves. The US Navy spent a lot of money to build these 4 hydrofoil ships, but it took more than necessary time to build them. About 14 years. And by 1974, another technology had also arrived that could track submarines and target them with helicopters. That is, the purpose for which hydrofoils were made can now be done in another way. Therefore, now hydrofoil work was nothing but fast patrolling. In addition, the losses of these hydrofoils were more than their benefits. One is that their strength was very low compared to normal combat ships. They could not be loaded with much weight, which meant that they could not carry much heavy weapons. Due to the high fuel consumption, they were not even cost-effective compared to conventional ships. In short, this experiment of the US Navy, where it was successful to some extent, many people had also been against it. In order to prove itself strong in front of the world, hydrofoil had become a controversy. No one wanted the Navy's budget to be wasted on such a purpose that could be achieved at a very low cost. But because the world had to do something in the Cold War, 6 hydrofoil ships were only prepared for coastal patrolling. These were called Pegasus-class hydrofoils. These ships were in service for 10 years. After that, in 1991, the Soviet Union finally broke up, the Cold War ended, and in 1994, these hydrofoils were decommissioned forever. The ship that used to fly in one era is now lying on the shore of Astoria. Its wreck is uninhabited. I hope you will like and share this video of Zem-TV. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next video.